have a discussion about the community, what community means to us, what kind of experiences do we have communities, how communities work, how do they function, and what is a challenge for, what are the challenges for different communities. I spent some weeks in a similar community in Copenhagen. It was also hippies, and they were living together in some hangars.
Christian?
No, it's similar to Christianian, but it was a different one. And they were also trying to build a consensus democracy.
Yeah.
I would say, for me, it seems sometimes anarchy a bit.
What?
Anarchy.
Yeah.
But there are rules.
Yeah, it's...
They're very strict with the rules. Well, I've been to some of these gatherings in Brazil, and I felt like there were like too many rules. Like, you can do this, you can do that, you have to do like this, you have to do like this. Like, women first, children first, then the guys. They are like at least in Brazil. And also, like, when they decide the next meeting, like, everybody has to agree. And I think they have lots of rules.
Yeah, for people who say they're free.
Maybe you can have it in the minimum society, like in a couple, you can get that perfect consensus.
Right, so maybe that's an interesting thing that you say. Perhaps on a smaller scale, it's a little bit easier to achieve.
It's just two people.
And with each person that comes into that community as you
it's
go,
harder and harder.
it becomes more and more difficult. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the optimal would be a compromise for the rules.
With the majority. So
do you agree with that?
I didn't get
for the optimal.
So
That, like, for an optimal way how to create rules,
Yeah.
it's basically democracy or like compromise.
Yeah.
We should obey.
Yeah, like dictatorship.
Obey, maybe.
Obeying?
No, because we have to start from what we were thinking when we were thinking about the basic community. So that doesn't have to be.
But you didn't say voluntarism should be part of the minimalistic community.
No.
Or some did, some didn't.
Yeah.
And then some people said and some people didn't.
Okay.
I think that when we look at this, that for idealistic we chose consensus and for the optimal we chose compromise. Then regarding to all that we've said earlier, minimum would be just a communication at some level.
So if there is any kind of communication that can lead to some roles, or it can it can.
Yeah, maybe not like rules, but maybe like agreements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you have to start from something. If we go from minimal to idealistic, we start with communication, we come to consensus.
Yeah, but what happens in this case if there is this kind of communication and there is like not a system which serves that the opinion of the majority will become the rule? How does this function, or how does this go?
no, I think the minimum is that you have to have rules, but it doesn't have to be a compromise. So I think something has to be there. Which it's the question if everyone agrees or not. But I think something has to be there.
So if every community has a system, then that sort of system perhaps would be...
Yeah.
Yes. And then you will develop the system.
Yeah.
But it can be, some rules don't have to be imposed by humans. They can be imposed by circumstances.
But they are...
Yeah. They are imposed, okay. But
so there are some rules which are already there.
Yeah, they don't.
System.
Yeah, exactly. Some system, but as an entity of itself, it doesn't have to be created deliberately by humans, so to say.
So what is the border or the limit when you cross, and from this point you start the dictatorship starts?
I think communication.
Communication between or
between the people. I mean, a dictator. It's just a one-way communication.
Oh, yeah.
So he dictates. He says what to do.
It's not
but
a
it's not the
dialogue.
other way around.
Yeah.
But I have a question. Is a dictatorship always bad? Is it bad?
Yeah.
You say it's
We
all
consider it as it's bad. But according to history. But if we speak about ideal dictatorship, maybe it's not so bad.
What is the ideal dictatorship?
I don't know if it's good, but actually there are examples for it in history when like dictatorship was not a constant state that only ended when rebels or anything could stop it, but that they chose to have a dictator for a while in the case of emergency, and then they replaced it again.
Right
Can
now
we
we're
say
talking-
that now we have like two different ways of taking an action? One is like a peaceful demonstration, another one is maybe has some kind of violence or something which is like difficult for other members who are not affected. But these are some kind of protest. Could you call this a protest?
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe we could say that there is some protest and demonstration. But what other ways can you?
Maybe you can
Could
form
we-
a group of an activist group, so you do things in order to affect society in a good way. Like if you think there aren't enough green spaces, you can start planting trees and you affect the society by doing things rather than opposing and being negative.
I mean, the example could be, you know, if your town is really dirty and you know you really don't like it, you protest against it. You say, why don't we get, you know, more street cleaning personnel? And I like Svetlana's example because, you know, that's another instead of peaceful demonstration or protest, you could just take maybe a group of you or you alone could just start going and cleaning the streets little by little, tiny little small actions. But maybe it could have other effects. It could cause, you know, inspire other people. The group could grow. It could, you know, maybe turn into a demonstration. But through these, just taking the action.
They started
Doing
that in my
something.
town. They formed organizations of volunteers who go and clean the parks because a lot of people dump their junk in the parks, and it grew a lot. So it was from one park, now it's all parks, and it got more often. And a lot of people joined, and usually it's the same core people who do the cleanings, but you can choose your level of involvement. So some people just go once because they have free time. Some people go all the time, and they clean regularly all the parks.
May I interrupt you?
Mhm.
Talking about this thing, like somebody's always doing the mess, and some people always clean.
Yeah.
Why have it to be so? Why can't we punish those who do the mess? Why have we?
Because if you punish them, because you have to, it's an awareness issue rather than punishment issue. If you punish them, they're not gonna stop. Like you have to change the way they think.
Is
for
it
them
an
to stop.
option for an individual to make a punishment? Because now we are speaking about how can an individual make an action towards the malfunction of the community.
I think this is a good example because you have to think about what's more important for you. Is it more important that the people that have done this get punished, or is it more important that you have clean parks? You have to
But the
decide.
same.
Yeah.
Who makes the mess? The people make mess. Not the mess somehow exists there. So we have to change the minds of the people who do this.
I do
bad
understand
stuff.
her very aggressive way of dealing, but also I think you have to like do that, but also like with an education, like.
Yes. I don't say that we have to kill all them.
I have an experiment. Last summer I was in Portugal and we tried to, let's say, preserve graffiti there. We were, because there were a lot of tags, just don't, yeah, you know what I mean. So we tried to put white color on these walls, and then the graffiti man starts to paint again. And it was really cool because after these 10 days, the children who did these tags, came to us and tried to help us with cleaning and this stuff. So it's what are you talking about? That you can really change the minds of people by this action.